in about 1 minute. We'll give Melody a chance to get back to her office. Yeah, we do need that clock.
Jason, I'm ready.
All right, perfect. Welcome everybody to tonight's Planning Commission meeting. My name is Jason Hanson. I'm the current chair of the Planning Commission. This is for December 6, 2023. Tonight we'll go ahead and we are going to start with an invocation. I'll go ahead and offer that this evening, and then I'll have, how about Commissioner Shield tonight? Can you lead us with the pledge? Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. So I'll go ahead and start this with a prayer. Father in heaven, as we come before for our Planning Commission this evening, we're grateful for the opportunity that all of us have to live here in this wonderful city, in this area. We're grateful for the blessings that we have and the families that we have that support us in the things that we do. We're grateful for the safety that thou has watched over each of us to be able to come to this meeting and have a little peace in giving back to our community and helping it build to be a better place for all of us and each of us to live. We're thankful for the blessings that we have in our lives, and we ask you to please watch over this meeting with a spirit of cooperation, and we can all get along and share our thoughts and ideas freely and equally. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Commissioner Shield. All right, the first thing we'll do this evening, Commissioners, is we'll look for an approval of the agenda as outlined that you received. If you've had a chance to look at it, if there's any changes, please note at this time. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
This Shield, I second.
I've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved as is. We'll go on to the second item, approval of the minutes from the meeting from November 1st, 2023. I've had a chance to review those, and if there's any comment or suggestion or question at this time, please let us know or let Melody know. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion on this particular item.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 1st meeting. Was it November 1st?
This Shield, I second.
Is that date right? Was it November 1st? Just want to confirm. That's right.
Okay.
Okay. I've got a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved for November 1st, 2023, and those are on file. Item number 3, this is the opportunity for each of you to declare any reason for an abstention or a conflict that you might have with any of the items this evening. I personally do not.
None.
I do not.
None. Okay, perfect. We'll get right into it then with our first item on the agenda. This is a preliminary plat. This is a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for Burke Springs Phase 3 amended preliminary plat located approximately Crimson Creek Court and Rimview Drive. The applicant is Short Term Investments LLC and Civil Science. I'll turn the time, Eldon, over to you for staff report.
Thank you, Commissioners. The applicant is proposing to add 2 additional lots from the adjacent property and adjust the boundary lines to better configure the shapes of lot 317, 318, and 319. Also, the southeast boundary adjacent to lots 324 and 323 are being realigned to follow the existing retaining wall. This amendment will increase the total lot count from 26 to 28 lots with an area coverage increase from 7.624 acres to 8.07 acres. The previous preliminary plat was approved on September 28th, 2022. The zoning designation at this location is R18. The surrounding zoning is PCD to the north and west and single-family residential 8,000 to the east and south. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Burke Springs Phase 3 subdivision, and that's on to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. And I'm happy to answer any clarifying questions at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor for anything that you have initially.
Looks pretty straightforward, like they bought some more property from the other owner and added more lots, basically, right?
Correct. Yeah, the Crabtrees there wanted to join in on this subdivision that
Yeah.
you can see that's an existing home there up on the hill and adding those other two lots, 320 and 321.
I don't have anything. Thanks, Eldon. Appreciate it. This is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open this up. Is there anybody here that'd like to speak to this particular item this evening? Please come forward to the microphone and state your name for the record.
Beverly Workman. My son, Brian Murray, lives on Creekside Court and couldn't be here tonight. So how is this going to affect the people who already live on Creekside Court?
Beverly, from what I can tell, it doesn't appear that it's going to affect it much at all. We're just going to be adding two lots that are already, the land's obviously already there. The road's going to stay the same. There's going to be, in my opinion, there isn't going to be any change to the folks that live there. These two lots are just being added to the subdivision.
Okay, does that affect the retaining pond or anything?
As far as being able to hold runoff and things like that, or relocation of it?
In any way?
I don't believe anyway, otherwise it would have come up in a staff meeting prior to it getting to us. If there's something that I don't know about, Eldon or Drew, happy to listen to it, but I would not expect it to change anything for any of the residents nearby.
What about are the houses going to be higher and obstruct the view of the houses that are already there?
Well, you should be able to see that already. They've done a bunch of grading, all that grading. They've cut the streets in. I don't know, I can't say guarantee if someone builds a 1-story versus a 2-story, it will affect, but.
It's unethical. It might not be illegal, but it's very unethical.
Well, it's like anybody, it's like the same folks that, when these homes were built here, had the same thing to say about the people that are already existing. It's just what we deal with as a city, as you grow. Every growth, has some sort of an impact on everybody else, but that person who came in that feels they had the impact, they were an impact on someone previous to that. And those folks were previous to that. You see what I'm saying? It just,
Yeah,
it
but
all
you can
just
have a
goes
good
down.
impact or a bad impact.
But
So
everybody has the right to
ethically-
develop their property as well. So.
Yeah, I know that's your view. I've been in meetings before.
So the drainage is always addressed in the public works. They have construction drawings. They have to account for their water,
Mhm.
what is happening now and what they're going to create. So that'll all be taken into effect. They probably already have a tentative drainage plan. That's why you see the detention ponds where they are on that previous slide. And they are to account for that water and to hold it and then pass it through whatever it's coming through at this time. So those are things we have the engineers turn into us as they build it out.
So if there's a problem with retention pond, is the city then liable?
No, the engineer's liable for designing a project that didn't meet what he said was going to work.
But the city inspectors inspect it, right?
But the design is by the engineer. The state requires that subdivisions are designed by a professional licensed engineer. And we're supposed to accept their product because they've gone through and gotten their license through the state. The state actually puts the burden upon the engineer, who has to then carry his insurance, et cetera, through his design. It's not the city's. The city doesn't become responsible for a poor design by an engineer if that fails.
Okay, so why weren't these lots added initially? Why are they being added at the last minute?
They're not. I'm just going to point out the home that's been out there forever, even before anybody that lived around it, including your son's home. These folks, they were going to keep a bigger lot. They decided not to. They decided, hey, because the guys offered that are doing this, if you want to join in and develop, we'll help you in the plat. So they actually at first said, no thanks, but no thanks. But then over time they thought about it and they thought we might as well break off this part of our property and make it part of the subdivision. That's one of the reasons. They had a few other things that happened over here on the corner. You know, like I say, they pointed out this one. Let me go back to it. Right in this corner, that used to be an angle. If you can see my little arrow down by this red, you can see it's on a angle now. It used to come and go more of a 90-degree, but there's already an existing retaining wall built there. So they said, why put the boundary out here? We'll just follow the retaining wall. So they're coming up and cleaning up just one or two little things like that that they found when they started building it out. And the same issue up here, they found it was better to put this notch in because of retaining and the elevation changes that are up there. So they just thought, why all these things are happening? We're just gonna do all these things. We'll add the lots, fix these little things, come in and get the plat amended.
Your son must have had you come tonight to speak on his behalf. What is
We also got a notice, excuse me, we also got a notice that there was a zoning change. So I'm trying, it doesn't have it on
I don't believe that
your
that's the
list,
case.
but it had it on the notice that Coral Canyon sent out. That there were gonna be
There
zoning
is one in the
changes.
Coral, that's over by the water tank. We'll get to that one in a minute. Those are separate public hearings. There's another one that you might have got notice on.
Well, we got notice that there was a change in Burke Springs and it didn't directly affect us, but that if we had an interest in the changes, that we should come.
The Burke Springs is the subdivision right here, and then we have a general plan proposal. You might have got one over here by the water tank that comes up in another agenda item. It's right next to the Coral Canyon area. Here's the Burke Springs, and then here's the general plan amendment. So that's why you might have got, do you live in this area here?
Brian lives
Oh.
right next to those two new plots.
Okay,
Plots, whatever you call them.
yeah, but I don't know.
He's right by the White House up there in the middle.
Okay,
He's
yeah,
this-
it might have affected what's happening right over here. This is the water tank out by the freeway.
Right?
And this landowner's asking for something later in another item tonight.
Okay.
It's a general plan amendment,
So the two lots you're adding are between that White House? and
right by the
abandoned-
White House and between your son's property and the White House. I'll go back. It's these two lots, 320 and 321. They were part of the Crabtree property. They're now adding it into the subdivision.
Okay.
That's all that's changing, is that they've decided to create these two and put them up for sale.
Okay, Brian asked me to bring up the, I can't remember what it's called. Did the fire marshal approve the vacating, because everybody would have to vacate the area if there was an emergency via Coral Canyon Boulevard? So that's one road that you've got all these homes emptying onto to get out of the area.
Yeah, there's not a vacation. We're only adding roadway, not vacating roadway.
Before our packets get to us, the fire department does have the opportunity to look at all of this, and it comes to us with either a green or a red box, and that is a green box, if that's something that's been reviewed and there's not an issue from the fire department.
Also, even though they are going on to Coral Canyon Boulevard, there is more than one exit. This is not, this isn't a tied up spot. There's still more than one way to
Yeah,
exit
you can
Coral
go up or
Canyon.
down.
So it's been designed because you've got the houses and all that stuff up behind it. I believe that's what you're asking is for the egress,
Yeah,
not the
egress,
vacate,
that's
the
word.
egress
Yeah.
to come out of there. And there's plenty of egress getting out of that. There's more than one way to get in or out of that subdivision right there.
There's three or more. Yeah.
They very, very seldom does that come up where they don't have the egress to get out. There's always
Well, it
two.
just happened up on the bluff. so
There's
that's why-
always two. The one on the bluff is now in. You can see right there on the north side
Right, it is.
of the ridge where it goes in. Then on the south side, there's a smaller one that comes out for emergencies.
Right. It kind of goes into the Sienna Hills rather than going right over to the Maverick
Yep.
the way it was. Okay, he also said that, you're approving two new lots, but, Burke Springs HOA plans says that that there has to be community improvements, more community space, area for their clubhouse and things like that, that hasn't been approved. But yet, these are being assigned as house plots before things are being addressed.
Burke Springs isn't part of the Coral Canyon.
I know, it's on its own HOA.
They have a clubhouse.
No, they have one little
Are they
bit of,
supposed to have a clubhouse?
They're not required to have
They're not
one.
required to have that. I mean, all subdivisions nowadays, most all have HOAs to carry for the retention ponds and all that to maintain them and clean them up. If this doesn't require amenities, which it's usually not big enough to, they don't need to have any of that stuff.
their HOA agreement doesn't say that they'll continue to improve community space.
Well, there's no community space in any of this R18. There's a park that was put in down here off of Crimson Creek, and it's not really
It's not
very
a
big
There's
park.
one- Yeah, there's
it's a
one
little play
swing
area
set.
right over here.
Yeah, there's one
but
little swing set.
They're not required by the city to put in any amenity area. So we wouldn't, if they've done something in CCNRs, we're not allowed to be in the middle of CCNRs as a city. That's a state law.
Okay. But there's also laws about the HOA, so does the HOA have to notify you that it's in their CCNRs and that,
All they have to do is notify us that they are registered with the state. Whoever their board is, they have to register with the state of Utah. We just verify that they registered with the state of Utah. If there is an HOA. This one, I don't know if they're having one. We'll have the applicant can answer about the HOA. But for us, it's not an issue. It's straight zoning, which means there is no requirement for common area, et cetera, and to have clubhouses and things like that because of the zoning.
so you've got one law that says that they have to meet their CCNRs and you've got another law that says that that's not your priority?
No, you're talking about, there's not a law. Some people choose to have an HOA. That's theirs. It's not a law. They've all
There's laws
signed
about how
into
the
it.
HOAs are governed.
Right, by the state of
Right.
Utah, what you
Right.
can and can't do in them, but we don't get in the middle of those. Cities are not allowed to.
Okay, so the developer has to meet the HOA guidelines when they say that they're gonna,
If there are, but I want to know who put guidelines on vacant space. I'm kind of confused that your son asking that because that would not have been covered in anybody's overall, because this is a whole different developer than Perry Homes was that built the other
Right.
stuff. In fact, your son's little development wasn't even a Perry Homes development, I don't think.
it was built by.
Did they
Perry Homes.
bought it? Okay. At first it wasn't. It was an individual property owner that divided those 6 lots up,
Okay.
at
Perry
one
Homes
time.
built his
Yeah.
home.
But this is not a Perry Homes development up here.
I'm aware of that, but when we came to the city planning meeting, when these lots were being drawn up and they're supposed to be at a certain altitude and everything like that, I don't know if that was ever checked. But they also talked about that they were going to join, they talked to Dave Houston about coming in on Coral Canyon's HOA. And Dave Houston said that can't take place. And
No.
then they brought up in the meeting that they were going to go into the Burke Springs HOA.
Well, we'll let him address that.
Okay,
That's
that'd be
not,
wonderful.
that's a question that these gentlemen or us, the staff, can't.
Okay.
If he wants to delve into what they're doing HOA, we'll let them. But I'm just letting you know,
Okay.
as everybody, we can't get in the middle of HOA stuff.
Okay,
We're not allowed to.
okay. Would you mind addressing that?
I'll go
That's-
ahead
he's a
and
staff
handle
member.
that.
Oh, who
Thanks.
addresses it?
Well, if the applicant's here, we'll have them address that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, okay.
Drew, am I missing something here? I'm seeing this is a guy has a big piece of land and he wants to make it smaller.
They have a bunch of lots. You
Yeah,
can see all
what
these
am I-
white
What am I
lines.
missing? Am I
They're
missing
organizing it
something?
and making it a subdivision.
All right.
Yeah. Putting roads in, water, sewer, the whole thing.
Anybody else like to speak to this particular item? I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. Would the applicant like to come up and speak to this item? If you have anything that you want to address of what you might have heard, I'd appreciate it. Please state your name for the record. Thanks.
Mike Stewart. The HOA, we made multiple attempts to reach out to the Burke Springs and figure out who that was. And for the longest time, I thought it was Dave Houston with Coral Cane. Find out that was the wrong person. I was getting them mixed up. Anyways, we finally found the right property management company, decided it wasn't beneficial to join their HOA. So we created our completely own HOA for phase 2, which we've already completed. And phase 3, we haven't even done yet, but we'll join. So phase 2 and 3 will have our own HOA. If at any point all these homeowners says, hey, you know what, we want to join in with those guys, cool, but we don't. And the only reason we have our HOA is to maintain our detention basins, and also that one that we took responsibility of for Coral Canyon. We went and improved it, so we're going to maintain that for them. So there's no intention to be a part of their HOA at all. It just didn't make sense. So that was a bunch of back and forth, and decided it just wasn't beneficial to do that. And like I said, it was the Crabtrees that decided, hey, I think for their son, decided they'd like a lot and said, hey, if you guys will help us out, we're going to carry the construction costs. I think they're going to sell off one lot to be able to keep one for their son. We also, some of this, and the reason we adjusted that corner down there is to scoot our road about 2 feet. We're trying to save all of his pine trees in front of his house. And right now we'd have to take out their trees where our road's at. So we scooted that down to hopefully save all of his trees. I mean, this is really just to clean it up is all it is. So does that answer questions?
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Mike. Commissioners, I'll turn the time, open the floor for any questions or comments that you might have. I don't either. No.
I'm just going to ask Lee, did you get what he was saying? So they tried to, doesn't work out. They're going to have their own HOA, which they have every right, because they do have to create one for their detention pond. So, yeah. Don't forget to close your public hearing if you, oh, you did? Good job. Yeah. I just went.
Commissioners, I'll look for a motion on this item if you have no other comment or questions for staff or the developer.
Whoops, this is Shill. I would recommend that the planning commission approve the preliminary plat for Burke Springs Phase 3 subdivision and send it forward to the city council based on the 2 findings and the 12 conditions.
Commissioner Tupou, I second that.
Can I just tweak that preliminary plat amendment? Sorry. Because it's an amended preliminary plat.
Oh, do what now?
Just add the word amendment to the name. You did the Burke
might have said
Springs. It's just because
preliminary
they already have a preliminary plat. We're just amending.
Okay, well, I'm just reading what I was printed on my,
Yeah.
so let me change that then. I would move that the planning commission recommend approval of the amended plat
Preliminary plat. There you go.
for Burke Springs Phase 3 subdivision and send it to the city council based on the 2 findings and 12 conditions.
Commissioner Tupou again, I second that.
Melody, can you make sense of that?
Yep.
Perfect. We got a first and a second. I'm gonna go ahead and have individual voting. Commissioner Tupou,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. We will send item number 4A to city council with our recommendation for approval. They can make the final decision on that. Moving to item number 5A, this is a final plat amendment. This is a final plat amendment. It's also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation again to the city council for an amended final plat to the Liberty Lane subdivision, lots 1 and 2, located at 240 West Centerfield Circle. The applicant is Jacob Brickley and Civil Science. I'll turn the time over to Eldon.
Thank you, commissioners. The reason for this amendment is to combine lots 1 and 2. No other changes are being made at this time. Staff would like to note that the proposed lot will be required to comply with the current R112 zoning regulations, with only one single-family dwelling being allowed on the lot, or the proposed lot. Staff has reviewed the proposed partial amended final plat and finds it conforms to the R112 zoning of this development. The subdivision also remains in compliance with the subdivision ordinance of the city. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the Liberty Lane partial amendment A, combining lots 1 and 2 onto the city council based on the following original findings and subject to the following original conditions. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor.
If they build a house on this, obviously they will they be required to come in off of the Centerfield Circle?
There's no requirement. They could access
They can
off
all
of either
240 if they wanted?
240 or Centerfield.
Okay, that's all I was wondering.
Do you allow them to have two accesses or only one?
That would be determined by Public Works in their building permit applications. I believe they can have two.
Do we know if there was a reason when it first came to us why it was split this way? Do they have other intentions, or was it just to try to get another house on there? Or it seems like it should have been how we're doing it tonight all along, or what we're seeing tonight.
Yeah, it just a much bigger lot.
Zone.
They squeeze in another lot to meet the zoning, and this is how it ended up with the buyer. He wanted both of those lots.
I remember when it
Yeah, I
came.
think they maximized their lots out with the zoning they had just to do that. I mean, that's what most developers will do.
Yeah.
Someone probably came to them and says, you know, if you'll sell me, but that's way too small, will you sell me both of them so I can put a bigger home on there? And that's probably why we're here tonight. They probably have an offer and it just somebody wanted a bigger piece for a bigger home.
And
Little more land.
this is the road that's just south of the Hoops Road. Is that correct?
They're on the Hoops is on the same
one.
road.
This is that road then.
Yeah, this Centerfield Circle,
Okay.
in fact, yeah, if you.
Yeah. So I get, okay. I can understand why they would have done it then. They maybe thought we could sell this to two people, and they've built out, if not all, the majority of the other ones, where maybe they couldn't sell those two smaller ones and someone said, I'll buy it for the whole thing. That makes sense now. Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, any other questions?
Feels better to me.
No. I will go ahead and open the public comment section on this item number 5A. If anybody would like to speak to this item, please come forward and state your name for the record. I don't see anybody, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and Commissioners, I'll open the floor again for either a motion or any additional comment.
Commissioner Tupou, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that Planning Commission recommend approval of the Liberty Lane Partial Amendment A, combining lots 1 and 2 onto the City Council based on the following 2 findings and 5 conditions in the staff report.
This is Commissioner Bullock, I'll second.
We got a motion by Commissioner Tupou, a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting, Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
Tupou.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item number 5A passes unanimously. We'll send that to City Council with our recommendation for approval. Moving to item number 6A. This is also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the City Council again for a general plan amendment, G-2306, to change from a planned unit development to an LDR. The applicant is Rosenberg and Associates, and I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thank you, Commissioners. The applicant is seeking to amend the general plan in this area of approximately 1900 north, 2400 east. The requested area covers approximately 23.58 acres. The current land use designation is planned unit development. The applicant is seeking approval to have that land use designation changed to a low-density residential general plan designation. The surrounding general plan land use designations are open space to the north and the east, and plan unit development to the west and the south. Staff's reviewed the requested change and is very comfortable with the proposal, finding it to be in harmony with the surrounding uses and general plan designations, and that's both of Sienna Hills and Coral Canyon that it sets right in the middle of. So staff therefore would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of G-23-06 to amend the general plan land use map from PUD to the low-density residential designation as outlined and shown in the exhibits attached here too, and that would be on to the city council, that recommendation from you. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have on this proposal.
All right, commissioners, I'll open the floor. Drew, when this was all dirt up there before we zoned it for anything, was it open space? Like before, I can't remember the builder that's up there now, but prior to any of the houses up there?
It's been dirt since I've worked here for 18 years, right up by the water tank. And
I'm just wondering if before it was a PUD, it wasn't low density, then it would have been open space, right?
it was actually community commercial way back in the general plan when I started working here in 06. This was all Sullivan property. They owned everything down below. That's more in the Sienna Hills development, but they owned all the way up here, up to, you can see where the white line is in my arrow. That's always been part of that Sullivan piece, and everything even coming down here and then off of the ledge down into the Sienna Hills area. So
That'll come out onto Grapevine, correct?
yes, that road's already in, even though it's not showing on here. But it does now come down. You've been up there. In fact, they painted the rocks black like they were supposed to, and it really stood out. Everybody then knew where that road was. It's a beautiful road, actually. If you get up there and go up and down it, it ties Highland down in to Sienna Hills for that secondary access, then over to all the commercial and I-15. So this piece, the Sullivans finally sold in the last couple of years. It's something I thought I would be long gone and retired before they ever did, but times changed. And so this project, you've approved some zone changes down below, some PUD stuff. And so that's what they came in and got this change to that. And they only did it because this was all tied together at that time. So now they're breaking this piece off up on the ledge. They just want to make it, you know, with the low density, that means they're either going to be 10,000 or 12,000 square foot lots. They'll kind of pick up with what Solus is doing here in the Coral Canyon area and just continue the theme right up to the water tank.
So Solus didn't take us to the water tank then originally? It took
No,
us to the
it
road
wasn't
and-
their property. That wasn't even Coral Canyon. You know, when you look at the Coral Canyons PCD, it goes around this.
Okay.
So, and this was always just earmarked because we kept it in one chunk instead of trying to put a line down the ridge. The old general plan that had it at community commercial went all the way up here. And then they came and changed it to PUD thinking they were going to tie all this. And then they realized that's not what they're going to do. They'll just make it an R110 or R112 development, finish it out.
Where's
up on top.
those apartments going in conjunction with this? Isn't it pretty close
Yeah,
to
let
that?
me, see where this big loop is right here? That's
Yeah, okay,
that's one of the Sienna Hills developments right now. It's going right, those are going right here.
okay.
It was approved. In fact, that white line is the road.
And
It's been brought
Are
in.
they gonna keep that trailhead going underneath the freeway, I guess?
Yes, that's all part of the plan for this commercial development and everything. That will be, they'll end up putting a trailhead there as part of their PUD that was given, you know, in that earlier approval, so.
I was up there about a month ago and I was surprised how many houses they had already had almost completed. There's probably people living there now, but when I was up there, there was,
In this area, yeah.
probably
that's
20 or 30 houses that were
That's
being
growing
built
pretty
almost-
quick now,
yeah.
yeah.
So these will just be larger lots down at the end then. And they'll have their own retention and all that built
Yes,
with
they'll
that?
have to account for all that like any other subdivision does, so.
Okay.
Drew, how are they accessing, in light of their approval on those other roads that needed to create connectivity that they've never completed? How are they accessing this? Are they planning to access on the roads that go through the other Elevate approvals?
Yeah, well, no, they're not going to access from down here. They'll just continue on. We made Solis stub to the north like we do anybody else, even though it's not showing up on here yet. But you can see this is one of their roads, and there is a stub as part of that preliminary plat that points up here, because there are some lots that go that way, and they'll tie into that stub road.
So they'll not need to complete any of those improvements that existed on their other tentative approvals that they haven't completed.
Down below,
Yeah.
we could try, but I don't know how much leg we could stand on.
Will their road just be a loop then, if that, to stub into that one stub, give it around?
Have to, because again, there's no other, they'll be at this peninsula that they'll just have to come back in and tie into that.
Can you zoom out a little bit so we can see how it interchanges with the other roads? Because that white road all to the left, that's all road.
This is the brand new one.
They're supposed to build, right?
This is built. This is the one we're waiting to open up any day. Right, John? Any hour.
Does it connect all the way to?
This goes all the way to Grapevine, because that's built out to here now. Down here at this bottom where you see my arrow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this is built. There's a cul-de-sac right here in the R and the A of Grape. And it goes to here, and then this is like a 90-degree turn back into here.
Okay.
Won't all that come when they do a subdivision?
Yeah. Yeah, they'll have to, if they get this approved, they'll have to come back with a zone change still. This is just to allow them to ask for a zone change to the R110 or 12. Then they'll bring you that zone change, then a preliminary plat. So this is just
Their ways off.
2 steps in front of a plat.
I guess what I was wondering, and it is probably too early, because I'm going back to a question about the roads. With the one stub that's up there, you can see if there was, how on Solis, there's we'll call it a north road and a south road, and then it obviously turns. I'm wondering if that south can just continue, not going down, but continuing along the edge, or are they just planning on one loop that loops into that north road where the stub is up there now by that white
Well, you
rock?
can see this road actually has to make this bend right here, because this is where it starts going down the hill. If you follow my arrow, so this comes up, this one loops over, and then there's a T in here that we don't see right now. We don't get the ghost lots. I'm not sure why it's not been put on yet, but there is a T intersection right up here. There's a couple of lots still right here, but it's stubbed forward.
Okay. I don't, we've had a public hearing, open and closed. I don't have any additional questions, commissioners. I'll continue to keep the floor open if you do.
Is there hillside issues there?
There might be and there might not be. We'll have to see what their design's going to come in at.
If it comes in with an issue, that's addressed before it gets to us?
Yeah, we'll go through the Hillside Committee with their recommendation before we do preliminary plat. We'll get their tentative look of what they're going to be doing, and then we go from there.
So is there scarring there right now?
Oh, yes. Some of the best scarring in the town is right there. There was an old individual back in the day who had a big had a big toy called, it's a big bulldozer, and he used to love to go playing. He altered the floodplain and all kinds of things back, just having fun years and years ago.
Well, might be the best thing then to develop that, clean that up.
But if they don't touch it, I don't know, I don't know if we can force them to go clean that up. If they stay above it and don't, touch the hillside at all, then we may not be able to. We'll see what they do come back with their design.
For some reason, those guys with the old toys always wanted to find the steepest side hill with black basalt. And he cut some lines through that hillside of black basalt. I always go to the sandy spots because I can dig deeper, but those guys go to the hillsides.
used to ride your horse out here or something, you said once, didn't you? Right? Something.
Ridden a
and
number
Mitchell
of
were-
things out there, yep.
Yeah, you and Mitchell were talking about it. All right, commissioners, I'll look for a motion on item 6A.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion to approve G-23-06 to amend the general planned land use in the area located approximately 1900 north and 2400 east from the current PUD to the proposed low density residential designation.
Yeah. Sure, hope it's good. Go ahead.
Three questions. Where's the water gonna go that Cole West has agreed to add more water to the area somehow?
Not part of this project. I don't have any idea.
The Solus. they had to put
Solus,
more water.
Solus has installed inline pumps. It wasn't a question of water quantity, it was a question of water pressure. And so Solus has installed, the city is inspected and the state's certified, and that system has now been accepted. So up on that upper mesa, there's pumps inside the culinary water lines that pressurize those lines to the standard that's needed. The reason being is that water tank and the elevations weren't producing sufficient pressures.
Okay, so that affected all of our water pressure, right?
I don't know where you live.
I live in Coral Canyon, and my neighbors and us have had numerous burst pipes because of the water pressure being increased.
I don't think that would have affected you in Coral Canyon. The water systems have pressure reducing, and so there's some places where there's so much downfall in the elevation that there's too much pressure, and so they have to reduce it. This one was focused for those lines up at that area.
Okay. Wait, my second question is, where's the protected turtle thing land?
Other side of the freeway.
Because- It's the others, okay.
Yep.
Because I know the people up there see a lot of those turtles. So has that been looked into?
Has what been looked into?
Disturbing their habitat if they've migrated over? Because we had the big.
So
fires and stuff.
that's not a protected turtle area on the south side.
Right,
If they do encounter a tortoise on site, there's rules for how they handle it and where that's relocated to. But yeah, that's not a tortoise protection area, so it hasn't been studied as if it were to be added to the reserve.
okay. And that, my next question is that Cole West has heavy equipment working up there until about midnight, and then right back at it first thing in the morning, and it's very noisy. We can hear it at our house, which is on the other side of the church. And my son's house is right at the bottom of the hill. So it's very disturbing. Is there something that you can foresee with more of that development to keep it quiet?
So they're not allowed to do that at
Hours.
midnight. There's hours within which they can operate. If that's happening, you should call the city and file a complaint so that we can
Okay.
respond to the complaint.
Okay,
That's
Yeah.
the first I've heard of it, but yeah, we do
Yeah, I
that.
haven't heard of that.
If they're doing it for
Yeah,
sure.
there's hours within which you can do those activities, and if they're outside of it, we need people to notice it and let us know.
okay, thanks.
Yep.
I think we're at motion.
Mhm.
And I need a second. I believe Commissioner Bullock had the motion.
Commissioner Tupou, I second that.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Bullock. I've got a second by Commissioner Tupou, individual voting Shield.
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Tupou,
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item number 6A passes
Ma'am?
unanimously.
Ma'am, can I ask your name so we can just note it for the record? What was your name? Beverly Workman, thank you. The recorder's got it.
That's what they thought they heard. I'm just teasing. They were way off. That's okay.
All right. Item number 6B, this is also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to City Council for a general plan amendment, G-2307, to change from mixed high density and community commercial to a planned unit development and community commercial. The applicant is Rise Up and Bush and Gudgel, and I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
I apologize for all the acronyms in there, but it was a lot of just, we're shuffling is what we're doing. So It's almost like that musical chairs. We're just going to have them go around. And anyway, let's get through this. Well, hopefully the map will help clear things up. Applicant is seeking a general plan amendment in this particular area. It's at that northeast corner is the best way to do it of Tortoise Rock Drive and Buena Vista Boulevard. The requested area covers approximately 37.65 acres. The current designation is medium-high density residential and community commercial. The applicant is seeking, however, approval to have the land use designations changed to what you see on the screen, planned unit development and community commercial moved and shifted. I'm just going to go to the current thing so you can kind of get an idea. Keep this in mind that you see here. And then I'm just going to slide over. Luckily, we're all pretty close tonight in all the changes that are happening. The area in question is right here where you can see my arrow bouncing around. I'll just bring on the designations just so you have an idea. So you can see it's medium, high, and community commercial here. And this is the area we're basically going to be, that's going on with what we're talking about tonight. So just so you know what it's kind of just moving. And we're getting rid of the medium high density and going to PUD. So this is what it is currently. And this is where we're going with these. The rest of it will stay like it is on the general plan. Planned unit development. The surrounding general plan land use designations are low density residential and not yet determined to the north. Civic, medium density residential and medium high density residential to the west. The Interstate 15 corridor to the south and community commercial to the east. Staff's reviewed the requested change, actually very in favor of it compared to what the current is. And so staff is fine with this particular proposal. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of G-23-07 to amend the general plan land use map from the current medium high density residential and community commercial designations to the proposed plan unit development and community commercial designations as outlined in your exhibit. And that would be on to the city council. So for the commission, I'll be glad to answer any questions before you open up your public hearing. Again, keep in mind that with that PUD general plan designation, they'll have to bring in PUD zoning only. So that gives you, insight, and you'll see what the development is going to actually be. Where if the medium high density, they can come back and just go with some straight zoning, even though you would see it, but the council wouldn't through, an R3 zone. But that's not their intent to kind of do that. And this is what the proposal is. And so, again, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
What in the PUDs, what is the density that we allow?
Well, we would probably do that by what surrounding zoning is, so if I'm near commercial, I'm probably going to tell them they can go to the 13 to 16 high density residential. Doesn't mean we have to, fully accept that, but that's generally what we do. We didn't set them, and we did that for a reason. And so then we could take in to what was surrounding or if things changed over time. So I've got some townhomes down by Buena Vista Boulevard, on that corner. So we would probably try to keep them compatible or in between. So if I've got these designations of commercial on the east side, but yet I have this R18 with the Perry Landing, up here in this, we would probably try to keep that somewhere around the medium high density, what it's coming from. But we would probably keep them to 7 to 12 dwelling units per acre and maybe step it and stagger it. We have that. For PUD, you have that option.
We can feather it for the
You can
higher
feather
density
it out,
towards
yeah.
the commercial.
You could keep it more, and on this end for the first little bit, and then the next, and the next, and they could get more creative that way.
Okay. What, can you go back to the what
city
zone
map?
right now? Yes, please.
Yeah, you want the zoning right now or the
No,
general
right-
plan?
Right there's what,
Okay.
is what it is right now, correct?
Yeah, we're looking at this yellow piece and half of this red.
What-
So
the
they're
orange
taking
piece?
this out and making this commercial up here where my arrow is. And then this whole side, this west side, they want it PUD.
Okay.
Now with that PUD, they can come back and down on the street frontage, maybe do PUD commercial. We will entertain, a different variety or a mixed use project. It gives them a lot more flexibility here, and because of where it's located, right? This is going to be, this exit 13 could be the busiest interchange in all of Washington County. I mean, the way we look at it, it has the possibility to be the busiest, and some of the best varieties of amenities in that whole exit 13.
Well, it would give us, the way it is now, it gives us access to the commercial on the Washington Parkway and whatever that road is going up in between the two reds right there.
Yeah,
on the
this is
bottom.
Tortoise Rock. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, we don't have one over here where it looks like they're all separate land.
This is
Right
all
there,
Sitla.
yeah.
This is all Sitla. Yeah,
That-
everything.
I mean, it looks like a great place for a road, which it probably will be.
Yeah.
So you'd have frontage on,
Yeah, this will come,
Access, you
this
pull-
will go, this will build out to the north and go into the parkway, Tortoise Rock will. And then there will be some internal roads built. They may not end up even being like this, but we'll take whatever plan that works with the engineering.
but the commercial will be pulled off of Buena. We won't have as much commercial frontage on Buena Vista. Only half of that will be, and the rest of it will be up further.
Yeah, this will stay, community commercial here. This will be turned to community commercial. Then this is all PUD. Now, again, I said a little earlier, keep in mind, doesn't mean there may not be a proposal for some commercial, but it's going to be planned unit commercial. So
I
they
like
could
that.
do mixed use or different things that way. It doesn't completely take the commercial off the board, but it opens up more creative zoning along this west side.
I like it.
I like it a lot more. For the gentleman that asked, I don't know if you caught this, but one of the reasons that for a PUD, it allows us as the planning commission and city council to actually see the project, see what the buildings look like, see what everything looks like, as opposed to just seeing something like that. And you're like, okay, we're going to approve that. So the city, in my opinion, has become more preferential in having PUDs come to us, whether they're commercial or residential, because then we have a chance to see what it looks like. If it fits the surrounding area, we like it, we don't like it, we add this, we add that. And so it is a lot of jargon, but in my mind, when I hear PUD, it just lets us see what's happening, because that's easier for everybody to see when it's a picture or something. So where are we at with the medical facility? Is that still a go in the city? Do we know? Have we heard anything? Oh, Bob's building it.
It's changing all the time.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yep, appreciate your time, Bob Hermanson. So there are many discussions going on. None of it's landed on right now. And so as Drew is hinting is there as well as it's been a long discussion for a long time. And so as far as that, the old discussions going, yeah, they're still ongoing, but none of it's resolved at this
So
time.
it's not a done deal.
It is not a done deal. And so we are working on trying to straighten out the general plan with the city to work for the rest of the property, because there's in total, there's about 100 acres here.
Mhm.
And so there's many acres to work around. And so we're trying to sort this stuff out on this side so we can get some clear direction to start working through some of these other spaces as well.
Is this being done in anticipation that the medical facility may not ever happen? Or is that
So-
not?
So we're allocating space for any larger facility, and whether it's that or something else of that magnitude. And that's kind of the way we're operating right there. And that's more on Sitla's side than our side. And so we're just leaving some space there, but there's still substantial space left on the site.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So I have another question. So are we losing commercial? We're leaving part of this community commercial and then putting the rest of it into PUD. Are we losing commercial and possibly just for the PUD?
I would say probably yes, right? I mean, that whole PUD could be all
Property-wise.
residential.
It could go either direction. Our intent is to work through the development plan with this. That I would anticipate we're going to have both. We're going to have commercial and residential in there. As far as what exactly we're planning at that position, we don't have it yet, but
I guess what I'm asking is, say it does go comes back all residential, where we're taking out, are we losing commercial property right now the way this sits in PUD from what it was zoned before?
Oh, so what do you say, the acreage, maybe 2 acres difference
Maybe,
from that medium
yeah,
high density blob?
overall, yeah.
Turning it, so all we're doing is taking that one blob, the yellow blob,
Rotating it, yep.
and rotating it in essence to where it's going to go north and south versus east and west. So, but there's still the option. Right now, I don't have, when I say medium high density, there's no commercial in that at all, right? But if I come and do PUD, I can do mixed uses. There's still the possibility in PUD, which I didn't have in the medium high density. If that helps your mindset.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what the acreage is. Are we losing square footage of commercial property by doing this and going PUD? I know it has the potential to go that way, but as it sits right now, are we losing commercial property to a PUD?
Roughly, there's less commercial property in this example. However, it's also worth noting that what's not shown on there in the lower left-hand corner of that commercial is there's roughly 2.5 to 3, there's about 3 acres of a detention pond that's there. It's currently included that was never included to begin with. So in the end of the day, they're actually maybe a net positive.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so it's depending on how that washes out, and our intention of what it is that we intend to make it mixed. That's our plan, horizontally mixed. Currently, we don't have any vertical mixed plans. That tends to be challenging in development for us a lot of times. And so that's roughly where it's at. So it could go either way, but in the end of the day, it'll be net neutral, in my opinion.
Okay. That's why I was curious. That detention pond makes
Yeah, I was going to pop this up, I was kind of heading there, glad you already did it. This is existing, we've all driven by it. This was in the commercial piece, now it's going to be in the PUD piece, so it probably has about a net. Because I knew it might have been a couple, 2 or 3 acres one way or the other, but then bringing this in, it's probably going to be
That's going to have to
wash.
stay too,
For
correct?
sure. Yep. Yeah, in fact, this being the low point of the project, we'll probably add on to this with our facility to share with drainage for the whole area as well. And so again, it'll come forward in a much larger plan, right, to accommodate all those things.
You're talking all this area.
Would that,
Well, plus the other side of one of this as well. Yeah.
I'm just curious it doesn't make any difference. Where it's a big detention pond like that, is it going to be like the detention pond like over at Sullivan where it's a part of the time, then if it floods, it turns into, that isn't that way it is at Shooting Star?
Well, we'll let them kind of throw it, that could be
I'm just
an option.
asking, is that, because that's a huge detention pond.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is a regional detention pond that takes up basically everything from the north side of the parkway is actually where what that's from. And so right now, we don't have a plan for any of the detention as far as what it was. Could it potentially be a shared use, like a park or something else? Potentially, for sure. We always like to try to incorporate those things instead of just having so much dead space, right?
Right. That's what I was curious about. Is if where it's so big and it seems to work out really good for when there's no water in it.
Totally agree. And so there's a couple of different options with that detention, whether we, because our on-site would be in addition to that, right? And so that wouldn't change, but is there a way to size that from the top down, making it some smaller ones, or maybe combining that into a park facility? For sure. Yeah, it's a great idea. Whether we can get there or not, I have no idea, right? But
Right.
yeah,
No, I was just curious
yeah,
if that's what it
definitely
would.
considering.
That's huge.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. This is a public hearing, commissioners, and we did receive a comment from Douglas Chadwick that, Drew, I wanted to ask you about this comment. I know you've seen it with regards to parking on Tortoise. He was asking about that. I don't know if there's plans for that. I think it's too early to even tell.
It's way too early.
Way
We'd
too
have to see
early.
what the project is.
Yeah.
He made comment, we have made changes to our parking ordinance, as you're aware, in the last year, requiring more in multifamily developments. I like where it went. But to keep, right to the point is that if it's a public road, people can park on public roads if there's a shoulder to do so.
Yeah.
And this one probably would have, so I can't say that it wouldn't, but they could not use the street as part of their calculations to meet the parking. But again, I can't keep people from unfortunately parking. If there's room on the road and it's striped for them, you can park on any public street.
Okay. And the same goes for his question about what types of stuff would be in the PUD and community commercial. That's not tonight. We don't know. We're not asking.
That's right, and that's the beauty of the PUD is that you will have a chance to see it and negotiate that.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to the public hearing. If there's anybody in the chamber that'd like to speak to this item, please come forward and state your name. This is Beverly Workman coming up, getting your money's worth tonight. Fire away, Beverly.
I just ask that you keep in mind that you might be putting businesses right across from homes, and it might not be the safest thing for children in that family area. So I ask that you keep in mind where you end up putting those commercial areas and where you put the park. If you can get space for a park, maybe have it closer to the kids so that they're more closely monitored and safer.
Perfect. Thanks, Beverly. Anybody else for this particular item? I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and I'll open the floor, commissioners, back to each of you if you have questions or comments.
Make a motion. This is Commissioner Bullock. Make a motion to approve G-23-07, the request to amend the general land use in the area located approximately the northeast corner of Buena Vista Boulevard and Tortoise Rock Drive from the current designation of medium high density and community commercial to the proposed planned unit development and community commercial designation, and send this to City Council.
This Shill, I second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Bullock, a second by Commissioner Shield. Individual voting, Tupou,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. This motion passes here at the Planning Commission. We'll send that to City Council with our recommendation for approval. And at this time, commissioners, that's all of the agenda items that are listed this evening. Is there anything from the staff or commissioners that needs to be brought before the body at this time? All right, well, thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. I'll look for a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening.
This Shill, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
This is Bullock, I second.
I've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Recording stopped.